Hi, I'm Chaz Kangas for Go 95.3, and joining me right now in the most felicitous of occasions, a man who will be competing Thursday night at First Wrestling. He is a former WWE writer, he is a former multi-time Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion, and he is the reigning IWA Mid-South Champion and Zombie Princess, Jimmy Jacobs. Jimmy, how you doing today?
I am fantastic.
So, how has it been being back on the road?
I've been on the road for the past 2.5 years. I've been on the road, from Sunday to Wednesday, at least every single week for 2.5 years. Raw, SmackDown, and all the pay-per-views. Now I'm on the road on my schedule. Honestly, I'm on the road more than I've ever been. I'm only home maybe 8 or 9 days of all of December. I'm on the road right now. I'm going right from where I am now to tomorrow. I'm heading to Minneapolis, and then the day after that I'm in Kansas City, and the day after that I'm in Philadelphia, and I've got a couple days off. Then I'm in, I'm everywhere.
Yeah, so I guess I should say back on your road, as it were.
Back on my road, doing my thing. It's great, man. I'm having the time of my life. The past couple months has really been a lot of fun. I mean, more fun than I've probably had in wrestling ever.
Oh, excellent. So I wanted to ask you about the difference between, being on a road that you dictate versus the writing for the WWE schedule. Because, and prior to that, you had your, over a decade, one of the real icons of the indie era at that point, and transcending quite a few of those. That in mind, with how grueling that can be mentally and physically, is it the same sort of stress and duress being on the WWE writer's schedule like that?
Well, look, the travel accommodations in WWE are far better. Don't get me wrong. It was the perks of the job, and I was an employee too, so I was everything was paid for, and travel accommodations are very nice, but that's not everything. Certainly, there was, I think, more stress in the job in WWE just because of that environment. I don't want to say anything negative about WWE. It's a high pressure situation. It's a high pressure environment. You're producing 6 hours, at least 6 hours of live in arena content every single week. So I don't mind the travel. I've never minded the travel. I don't mind the work. I've never minded the work. But there's definitely there's something very comforting about the liberation and the freedom I'm experiencing now.
Cool. So speaking of you never minding the work and really always putting your all into it, you've really hit your road hard. You have the IWA Mid-South Championship currently. You're coming in for First Wrestling on Thursday. You got the CZWI pay-per-view this weekend. Being in front of some pretty different crowds with how varying the indie landscape is right now, is your warm-up ritual different depending on who you're going in front of?
My warm-up ritual? My warm-up ritual is to sit in my chair and kind of scratch my head and hope everything goes well, stretch a little bit, and just pray that when I walk out the curtain, somebody makes a reaction and somebody cares about me. That's my warm-up ritual, which is the same anywhere, any place I go.
Cool. So one thing about your tenure in WWE, which, and I've listened to, I really enjoyed your Talk is Jericho interview, but one thing I haven't heard sort of touched on, which interesting, not correlation equaling causation, but about a month after you started writing with WWE, Donald Trump announced his candidacy. And of course, with how tight the Trumps are and continue to be with the McMahons, I'm curious, was there ever any mention of that at the writer's table, or as his campaign continued, did that have any sort of influence on what you could or couldn't say on screen?
I think, to my understanding of things, and I'm not in the inner circle of this, Vince McMahon and Donald Trump are friends. And because of that, I think in another political year, in another election year, I think we would have had more kind of, political satire on our TV show. And I think because of their friendship, that was, sort of avoided.
Gotcha. Another thing interesting about your whole indie career, between both the Ballad of Lacey and even later going through when you performed at the Night of Hoopla back in 2013, music has always been such a big part of your creativity and your output and your total package. So was it interesting, or what was the most your takeaways from seeing how the impact of music within the WWE landscape?
In WWE, production is everything. That's one of the big things that WWE has over everybody else. Production is everything. So, they had Jim Johnson for years, do music. And anytime anybody's ever been over, any era of wrestling's been over, I mean, that music, man, that music means a lot. We even go back to the ECW days, the Sandman, Inter-Sandman hits, or hell, Tommy Dreamer, who's going to be at the show, at the first wrestling show on Thursday. When that Alice in Chains Man in the Box hits. I mean, the music starts to set the tone. The glass breaks. Everybody knows Steve Austin is coming out. When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside, there's Hulk Hogan, right? So it's such a big part of what we do, that pageantry. And so WWE, they're very, very, they understand that. There's people on that team, the production guys like, Kevin Dunn, who absolutely understand that. And Vince is hands-on with these things too. And now Hunter with NXT, and, the CFO, I believe is his name, who's been doing a lot of these songs, who's been doing, some of the iconic stuff. This Nakamura's music, which is absolutely, it's awesome. Nakamura's music hits, and he comes out, and he's doing his weird little thing, and, Bobby Roode and glorious hits. That is so much of what makes a character. That music, like Finn Balor. So you look at these guys that are over, and it starts when that first beat hits.
Yeah, it's kind of like, to tie it sort of to Minnesota, Prince had a theory that he wanted to make every single one of his songs recognizable from the very first note that you hear. And it kind of is that almost Pavlovian response to knowing what's about to happen.
Absolutely. The car crashes, getting brakes, car crashes, and here's Mick Foley, the chainsaw of Dean Ambrose. Those first few seconds, that recognizable thing, it's so smart. You said a Pavlovian response. You hear that. And that's so important, when you come up with music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you've wrestled in Minnesota quite a few times over the years. Do you have, not to put you on the spot, but any particular favorite memories that stand out of performing out here?
Oh, geez, I would have to think about what I've done out there. Because I used to wrestle in Minnesota quite a bit, and I wrestled there for different independent companies. I wrestled in the First Avenue years ago. I wrestled at the Armory in St. Paul with Ring of Honor, years ago. I remember I had a match in 2006 for Ring of Honor in St. Paul with Homicide, and I remember the lights. Something happened with the electricity in the building where the lighting didn't work and the music didn't work, and so I came out for my match with no music. This is right around the time I did the Battle of Lacey, so then I sang the Battle of Lacey, a few bars of that, until they got the music working, until the Homicide music hit. But I always liked that area. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it kind of the St. Paul, Minneapolis area kind of reminds me of Grand Rapids in that, both like cities, bigger cities, but not too big where there's so much traffic and you can't do anything, but big enough where a lot of stuff's going on, and people with the Midwestern sensibility that I grew up with. So I always sort of had an affinity for that area. Oh yeah,
you betcha. That central time zone there.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I've always been partial to your 2013 match with Kevin Steen, now Kevin Owens, at what I believe was a Masonic temple for Ring of Honor.
Oh wow, yeah. We did like a 4 or 5 minute match, just it was an all out sprint. It was just he attacked me, or maybe I speared him right away, and we wouldn't started hitting big finishes on each other, and we were in and out in 4 or 5 minutes. I forgot about that match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just pure adrenaline the whole way through.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So now, actually, recently rewatched your Smart Mark shoot interview from about a decade ago, and looking at that, and you mentioned the response at the time to when you were part of MTV's Wrestling Society X, and in the decades since, it's kind of grown into having its own really unique cult following. Do you ever hear from people bringing that up or rediscovering that, and have your opinions on it changed in the past decade or so of it?
I don't know what my opinions were 10 years ago. I loved the experience of Wrestling Society X. It was such a cool thing. There were some negatives that went along with it. But yeah, man, I was just talking about Wrestling Society X with somebody recently that said they have the box set and all the fun gimmicks. Yeah, it was just the 10-year anniversary of the airing of that this year, and I took a picture and put it on my Twitter of me and the old Tyler Black doing it for her, doing the same sort of pose we did back back in those MTV days with me hugging him and him looking annoyed, and to see the difference. What a difference 10 years makes, Seth Rollins.
Cool. So what was your experience, speaking of music correlations, wrestling for the Gathering of the Juggalos?
Oh, man, it was always wild, man. I've got a lot of respect for Insane Clown Posse, ICP, man. They really, did their thing, and they're successful at it. This sort of like underground act, DIY. I mean, I remember reading Violent J's autobiography, actually, and all the work they put into their success. I mean, those guys they DIY, man. They did it themselves for sure. So the Gathering of the Juggalo is just this, it's a manifestation of these guys being like, hey, let's just do this, and this would be cool, because that's what they do, man. Like, they think of something and they make it happen. It's so cool. The fans are rowdy. There would be guys wrestling there that, like, it's just the most random, like, former WWE stars and former, NWA guys. I mean, I wrestled Ultimo Dragon there back in, like, 2007. I wrestled Ken Shamrock there in, like, maybe, like, 2009. I remember, like, sitting around backstage. It was, like, me and Tracy Smothers and Terry Funk and Kamala and Jimmy Snuka, just Tommy Rich, just everybody, and who does these shows. They're wild.
Yeah, it's crazy just to see those lineups that are on like the DVDs, and now and because with so many people putting out books, just randomly these like legends from like the 70s and 80s, and like the very last thing in the end of it always winds up being Gathering of the Juggalos for like a last sort of victory run, and doing it for the clowns.
Yeah, man, ton of fun.
Cool. So, two more questions. One thing you're probably most known for writing during your time with WWE was the Festival of Friendship, which Mattel is now putting out in the Festival of Friendship, memorable moments, I believe it's called, set.
Epic Moments.
Epic Moments, there we go.
They're launching their Epic Moments playset with the Festival of Friendship. Yep.
So what's it like to see something you've created now immortalized in plastic?
It was super cool, and the whole Festival of Friendship was super cool, and it was cool, sort of from the inception, and it was. I had wanted to do kind of this big entertainment segment. I had suggested we do a This Is Your Life, like Mick and The Rock did, and then Chris suggested instead we kind of do our own thing and call it the Festival of Friendship, and we're going to be in Las Vegas. And so from the inception and the creation to the manifestation and how successful it was then, and I got a standing ovation in Gorilla for it, which kind of never happens. It was super cool. It was a super cool. I thought it was a really good segment, and to see that, I don't know if I'll have my own action figure, maybe not, but that's pretty close. So just royalties, where the royalties at? That's all I'm saying.
Excellent. Yeah. Cool. So finally, what are you most looking forward to on Thursday night?
So I've never wrestled for First Wrestling before, but I hear their wild shows. I hear their fun shows. And look, man, I'm having fun at all the shows I'm doing, which is great. It'll be fun to see Eric Cannon again and some of the other guys. Like Tommy Dreamer's going to be there. Abyss is going to be there. Rain, all sorts of, Sue Young, all these, like a lot of like cool people I haven't seen in a lot of years. And that's cool. It's cool just like seeing old friends. It's cool meeting new people. It's cool performing in front of fans again. I'm having the time of my life, and that train rolls on tomorrow here in Minnesota. So I can't wait.